Hey guys, I'm Peter Parkour.
And I'm the real Jossie.
And we are
the Distorted Theorists.
So, lots to unpack. If you watched our, I guess 2 videos ago now, technically.
Yeah, 2 videos.
We saw Spider-Man No Way Home. We were at the theatrical premiere
Yes,
for,
we were.
I guess you could say North America, because where we're on the Eastern, we were seeing it before, the actual world premiere.
100%.
Or after, sorry.
It was so good.
Really? You liked it?
I liked it. It was so good. Now, before we go any further, 2 things. First of all, guys, if you take a quick second, like this video, subscribe to our channel. You don't want to miss any future content coming down the pipe. We got lots of Marvel stuff coming up next year, and we're going to be covering all that in the new year, so you don't want to miss out. Second thing is, spoiler warning. Spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home incoming, because we're going over everything fine-tooth comb.
And this is true, because this is an important movie in the MCU. So this is going to be spoiler heavy. If you have not seen the movie and you watch this video, this is your own fault at this point.
Last warning is now.
So yeah. So I want to be the person that just goes like, wow! But I'm not going to, because the movie, it was amazing. It was. It's the best Spider-Man movie that is out there. Sorry, Spider-Man 2.
Hands down.
Sorry, Sam Raimi, but John Watts took it out with his 3rd Spider-Man movie, rounding out the trilogy of the Tom Holland Spider-Man MCU movies. I'm just rambling now, but at this point, let's break it down. Let's
start from the beginning, so to speak.
Well, let's look over cast, because this is where the big spoilers come out.
Okay, the movie starts with voiceover of Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, and it's eerily playing, we'll say, over the Marvel logo and everything. We don't even get a dun 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 dun. We get none of that. It's just a rehash of the ending of Far From Home.
And what other movie did something very similar to that?
Infinity War.
Wow, that really that took a lot.
I was going to say Endgame, but I remember when they're on the ship. But then we get J. Jonah Jameson, which is played by, because you say it,
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons. And then we go right into Tom Holland's Peter Parker
and Zendaya right after where Far From Home left off.
Like the moment.
Yeah. So if we look at the cast of the movie, we've got our regular hitters. We've got Tom Holland as Peter Parker Spider-Man. We've got Zendaya as Michelle Jones Watson. And we've got Jacob Batalon playing Ned Leeds. Who is in the comics.
The guy in the chair.
He's the guy in the chair, but he's also eventually, not to say that Jacob will be, but Ned Leeds does become the Hobgoblin.
There's more to that.
There's going to be much, and we might see a little bit more of that. But we also saw Jon Favreau come back, reprising his role as Happy Hogan. Marissa Tomei comes back as Aunt May.
We want to touch on that right now?
No, we'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Benedict Cumberbatch is back as Doctor Strange. He plays a big part in it. And then there's the big hitters.
The Sinister Five?
The Sinister 4.5, really. Because we have Alfred Molina returning as Otto Octavius. Willem Dafoe coming back as Norman Osborn, Green Goblin.
Jamie Foxx
coming back as
Electro.
I'm trying to remember his name. His real name. Max Dillon.
Yeah.
We got Rhys Ifans, who's coming back as Dr. Kirk Connors as the Lizard. And we've got Thomas Hayden Church returning as Sandman Flint Marko.
And even though they only showed those last 2 characters he referenced for a blip at the end, they kept them in full costume, and I'll get into why I think that was. But I think there was
the big rubber suits.
Yeah, I think there was 2 other actors in this movie.
Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. I'm just gonna get out of there. So they returned.
That was huge. That was huge.
I can't.
Did you feel like your body just went when they showed up?
Well, see, the thing is,
like out of body experience, I call it.
So it was really hard to stay away from the rumors that were circulating around this movie. You saw from, you did the second trailer review.
I did.
I didn't want to have any part of it because I didn't want anything revealed. You did say
I did.
There's not a whole lot that you haven't seen in the first trailer, but I didn't want to take that chance because I didn't want to speculate. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to dwell on anything.
And all due respect to Marvel, they did not show Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire or even other Spider-Man in any trailer, which I just want to give a little...
Well, in North America Brazil. They didn't, but Brazil messed that up and they released a still, which, now to
I didn't see
my own credit, I saw the still of the Lizard, in going towards in the fog and everything like that. But I only saw in that, as I was scrolling, like, oh my God, I gotta get past it. I only saw one Spider-Man. But people were saying like, oh, this is an image. I was like, they must have not meant to show the lizard, not realizing that there were two other red and blue blips that were in that picture. So let's just talk about the movie in general. We've already started how it picked up. So let's look at the plot. The plot of No Way Home is basically it's Spider-Man coming into his own, really and truly.
It is. I was thinking a little bit about today, obviously, because like we always say, guys, we keep it real. We don't talk about this all day till we lead up to our videos. But I was thinking like, you really look at it, and maybe this is a trope that you can attest to in the comics, is Spider-Man effed up. You know, we wouldn't have this movie if Spider-Man never effed up.
That is something that I'm going to touch on, because when it comes to Spider-Man, and obviously I'm going to have a lot to say about this because Spider-Man is my guy. I've been following him since I was 7. So I'll get to that in a second. So the plot, really and truly, the story, the pacing of the movie worked really well. The first act of the movie leading up to like, what are we going to be doing here? Felt a bit rushed. It needed to do that in order for the big reveals to work, to not feel rushed, to not feel a little bit long in the tooth.
They could have used a bit of breathing room a little bit here and there.
But at a runtime of 2.5 hours, I mean, we're up there. I mean, we're almost in Endgame and Infinity War territory.
I do believe that the movie did want to get the villains in there really early, because they were like, all right, here's what happened to Spider-Man. And here's all the throwbacks, and here's all the homage, and let's get this going.
And that's the hard thing that the previous Spider-Man movies have had with villains. Because with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man trilogy, you look at the first movie, we had Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. Full stop.
Solo villain.
In Spider-Man 2, we had Doc Ock.
Solo
villain.
That
was it. And then they decided like, oh, whatever. Sony got behind the reins and we're like, well, we're going to add Venom.
Hobgoblin, Sandman.
Well, no.
Wow.
It wasn't the Hobgoblin. It was the Green Goblin 2.0.
Sure.
And then Sandman. So you had, and technically, even though I know it was Venom, but still Topher Grace as Eddie Brock, he still kind of was part of there in the background. And Peter was fighting himself with the black suit, so they just had a lot going on, and it didn't work. Unfortunately, that was the first time we got to see Venom, and it just didn't work. So then we moved to Andrew Garfield. In the first movie, we had the Lizard. Okay, it worked. Big set piece at the end.
I wish he had a snout, but other than that.
But in the big set piece at the very end worked for the Spider-Man movie, or movie when he was going along on the cranes.
Yeah, it was
really
big,
cool.
like, it was that big moment, you know?
And then they went with the second movie, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and they were like, well, we've got the Rhino, we've got Electro, we've got the Green Goblin again. And he only showed up in like the last 20 minutes, and it resulted in and like that was there's a reason I haven't watched it since, because I can't watch that scene again. So then we got to Homecoming.
Oh man.
And I mean,
can we just take one quick second to appreciate Vulture? Because like Michael Keaton, amazing job.
And he didn't. That was the thing. So we had the Vulture. Now we had the other little underlings, but you never really get to see him fight beyond just getting webbed. Whatever.
He was there for 5 seconds.
And then in Far From Home, we had Mysterio. And it was a nice twist in that, because he was
Jake Gyllenhaal for the record.
But it was great because it was the red herring of like, oh yeah, he's here to help, and like in the comics, like, well, Mysterio's kind of weird, and then. So in this one, when you kind of figured out and you saw the posters. There's the Green Goblin. There's the Lizard. There's Doc Ock. There's Electro. Now, I didn't know anything about Sandman. I knew nothing about him, but that's 5 villains. And you had J. Jonah Jameson just pulling the strings behind the curtain. But that's 5 villains. 5! I mean, in Infinity War and Endgame, they had Thanos.
Stop.
That was it. Like, and so.
But you know, the good thing about it is not only did they redeem themselves with this 5 villains, I think they juggled them well.
No, they did.
And I think, in a subtle way, they said, we realized the other movies effed up a little bit, and they let all these other villains have their justice. I think they had their dues, and they got to get the redemption of where they lacked in the old films.
I think what really and truly happened, which you're right, and this is the way it went, but I think it was because Disney, who knows how to do villains right, were like, we're going to kind of like, yes, Sony owns Spidey. Amy Pascal can have a little bit of input, but Kevin Feige was like,
Well, they even, for the most part, they even retconned all their, shitty costumes. They gave them more oomph,
I know.
You had the new improved Max Dillon actually had the star shape with the electricity, and he used the arc reactor, which I thought was cool. You're incorporating current Marvel with old Marvel, or old Sony, or whatever you want to call it. And then you had Willem Dafoe. He breaks his Goblin helmet right off the start, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, where are
he
we
keeps
going to
the
go
green,
with this?
but then he throws the purple hoodies and everything on.
And the welding goggles and everything like that. That was a cool way of looking at it. So yeah, so the first act felt a bit rushed, but it needed to get us to the...
well, basically, oh shit, this...
Well, the villains being there.
Yeah, we split the multiverse and they're leaking into our world.
And so it started the whole thing with the battle with Doctor Strange and the whole mirror verse, whatever you wanted to call it. And then we got to meet the villains, we got to work with them, and it was the crazy montage, and it got right up until, well...
That a Bog showed up?
Well, no, Gobby.
Oh, yeah, well...
Doing
he was
made dirty, and... But...
Oh, we're going right there.
But this is what I mean.
Yeah.
So it got up to the end of the second act.
But that's when they really put the pedal to the floor.
But and that whole scene, right from that spider sense...
Yeah, I forgot about that, you just meant... So, there is a scene in the movie where... Peter's interacting with all the...
You've seen the movie, you know what we're talking about.
So, he's interacting with all the villains, and then all of a sudden he just kind of stops, and he's like, something isn't right here.
And he picks
right.
And
they monotone everything, though, and, all the sound just goes down, and it's almost like he's in a zone, and all of a sudden it's like... And Willem Dafoe is revealed to have been not in control the whole time.
Well, he was up until that moment when his voice came back. At least that's what I'm thinking. I don't think he was playing.
And right from there, they go in Willem Dafoe one-on-one with Tom Holland, and that was a badass scene when he's putting each other through walls and floors and holy crap.
A great little bit of trivia with that is that Willem Dafoe has gone on record saying that one of the reasons that he wanted to come back and do this, or that one of his stipulations is I want to be involved in the stunts and I want to be a part of this because he was very heavily involved in that in Spider-Man 1. So that was huge for him, 20 years ago.
He picked up right where he left off, though.
But
that maniacal laugh, he is a good Green Goblin, 100%.
But that fight scene that he has with Peter Parker and that suplex when he puts him through the floor, I mean, I almost stood up out of the seat with that. But anyway, so it goes on, and it really and truly, because that whole scene.
They get to the floor, the bottom floor.
Yeah, and does Aunt May dirty.
Yeah, but what does she say before?
She says the penultimate line. She basically has to tell Peter what he's doing right, and she says ultimately, with great power comes great responsibility.
And my friends, we both cried. Let's be honest with the fans.
But the reason that I knew that was going to happen is they kept showing Marissa Tomei a lot.
Yeah. She was in a lot of scenes in the beginning.
And I was like, why are they showing her so much? And then showing that happy was like, okay, so we're foreshadowing that something is going to happen to her. Yeah. I didn't know when it was going to happen. It could happen at the end of the movie. I wasn't sure. So when she did that line,
you said you knew.
Oh, I was like, she's Uncle Ben. This universe's Uncle Ben, because we don't know what happened to Ben, or if there was a Ben. I'm pretty sure we've mentioned it.
Well, I think he's mentioned it,
but we don't know what happened to him.
Which is fine, and this twist kind of makes you okay with that, I feel.
I'm still not okay with it.
You want to see the Uncle Ben scene?
No, I want to see Aunt May. I like Marissa Tomei.
Yeah, I mean her saying the line, and
yes, I'm okay with whoever says it, but whoever says the line dies.
Yeah.
So that was heart-wrenching.
And then that sent Tom Holland off the deep end.
But that was the end of Act 2, and then our Act 3 starts off
with the buzz.
Really strong.
Yeah. So right away in the start of Act 3, you get Ned Leeds. He's using the ring to open up a portal.
He's got the magic. He's got the touch.
Apparently he can just do, which Doctor Strange noted. And of course we see, boom, full Spidey outfit. Andrew Garfield comes through the first portal, and you were there. We were in the theater. Everyone was cheering and clapping. It's actually a moment you don't get in a lot of movies.
No.
But you know what? It felt like the movie actually deserved it, which I thought was pretty cool.
And it's true. And that's something I also want to touch on too, is because that whole scene with Andrew Garfield, the humor in this movie is...
He was good.
But not even him. Like the entire movie, the humor of like, do your tingle. Do you got the tingle? And the whole thing of throwing the bread at Garfield and everything like that. It really kind of hit that note because we just watched someone die, and then 45 seconds later, we're watching a roll be thrown.
Yeah. Well, it just kind of snaps you back into the movie, and
in true Spider-Man fashion.
That's right.
He uses his humor as something to kind of keep everything going.
And once again, and then you know you're not even done laughing, and all of a sudden they're like, all right, let's find the real Peter Parker. And of course he turns around again, opens up a second portal, and who do we get?
Tobey Maguire.
Maguire, not in outfit, which was really cool.
Well, he technically had it with him.
Well, yeah. But I thought they were going to really have an oomph moment. They didn't really, like, he hauls it down, he shows, and then the next thing you know, he's in full costume, he just puts his mask on. I thought there was going to be a more like, shh, or something. But
it's hard to do, because again, we haven't seen him in the Spider-Man outfit since 2007, which is the movie that a lot of people think didn't happen. Speaking of, I don't know if you noticed this, did you feel they were pandering a little bit to new viewers? I felt like they didn't necessarily, I noticed it, that they didn't just throw Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire and just be like, y'all know who they are. It was like, yes, but then they were also like, wait, who'd you fight before? Oh, I fought Venom. I fought a symbiote. Yeah, did you fall in love? Yeah, I had some, but I went dark for a while. I stopped pulling my punches.
So they almost, it's like Marvel said, yeah, well, we know you know, but there's probably going to be a million people who don't know, so we just got to give some backstory here.
But in backstory, and also just kind of to close off their arc too. It's like, like Andrew Garfield was saying, I stopped pulling my punches until I realized, until I kind of like had to look inward. And then Tobey Maguire is saying, we had our rough patches, but we've worked things out. Does he have a kid? We don't know.
Well, let me ask you a question outside of all that. Like, this is a personal opinion. If there was a viewer that had not seen any other Spider-Man, only Far From Home and Homecoming, so they only started with the MCU. Do you think they would have enjoyed this movie as much? Like you know what I mean? Like, let's say you're a new viewer and you've watched the first Tom Holland, you watched the second Tom Holland, and then you get this. Like, wouldn't you be a little bit lost? Wouldn't you think a little bit?
Oh, why don't you ask your wife?
Touche.
And I'm not saying that to be mean. Like, man, yes, your wife.
No,
it's true because your wife, Alyssa, I mean, she's not a Spider-Man fan.
That's right.
So when it comes to this, she didn't really know who these people were. She even said after, like, why are people cheering?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But did she enjoy the movie?
Yes, as far as I know.
And my wife, Ashley, I mean, she understood that Tobey Maguire movies were made. I don't think she's seen them, and she did see Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 with me in theater. Yeah. So she knew how hard Amazing Spider-Man 2 was for me with Gwen. That was... Because also, I just thought that Emma Stone was perfect as Gwen for that. But anyways, we're getting really kind of down in the deep rabbit hole. And so I have to say, like, again, it's fan service. 100%,
100%.
With everything they did. The big action piece and the Statue of Liberty with Captain America's shield, the whole montage of kicking ass and taking names, and the whole we got to work together, and Peter Parker, Peter 1, Peter 2, Peter 3.
So just to touch back on that a little bit as well, if I may chime in, for anyone, if you've seen our reaction videos, you've seen Hawkeye episode 5 last week, Yelena, and this is something obviously I couldn't talk to you till right now, Yelena mentions, I want to see the new Statue of Liberty. So that was a throwaway line in the show.
That's what it was about.
That's right. But you're like, because anyone who's seen the trailer, like me, not you, knew that they were rebuilding a new Statue of Liberty. And furthermore to that, and this is going to be more in this week's episode of Hawkeye, is at the end of Spider-Man, well, I'll let you tell him what does Spider-Man end up doing.
I didn't even think about that. He went over Rockefeller Center.
But he also gets the suit. Let them know about that first.
He finally gets
original suit.
His like sky blue and red suit.
But yes, he flies over Rockefeller Center, and two things I noticed. One, there's a white there's a white building with a bunch of windows, and there's the big multicolored Christmas tree. And for anyone who's seen trailers for Hawkeye, know that Clint Barton jumps out of that white building using a zip line arrow type thing and smacks into that exact same tree.
Oh.
So the ending of Spider-Man No Way Home and this Clint Barton thing, they are very, very close together. And here's the third kicker, ladies and gentlemen.
Because he didn't even mention a third kicker, and here it is.
Because of the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, Hawkeye no longer knows who Spider-Man is.
This is where you're wrong. He doesn't know who Spider-Man is. He doesn't know who's Peter Parker, but he knows that Spider-Man exists.
Yes, true. He doesn't know. Sorry.
I digress.
So, there could be potential of a Spider-Man reference in episode 6 of Hawkeye. He could see him just swing by for all we friggin' know.
You swore.
I know.
You said a bad word.
But also now we know Kingpin is involved. So that means he's in the Spider-Man universe.
We also know that Daredevil is present.
Matt Murdock showed up, and again, I cheered. That was sick. When he caught the brick, like he already has his powers.
I'm a really good lawyer.
Yeah, but he caught that brick, so we know he already has his powers at that point too. It's not like he's not established yet. So,
but yeah, like I was saying, the fan service of watching, and that was like, it was huge because I got to see 3 Spider-Man that I essentially grew up watching movies about.
Yep.
And like, on the drive home last night, Ashley even mentioned me. She was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe Tobey Maguire is in that because he sucked." I was like, "Okay, here's the thing. All 3 Spider-Men that we have had in live action cinema, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland, they started out rough and Tom Holland is the best, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man. He's the best overall.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield was the best Peter Parker because he had the whole he had that whole nerd thing going down. And Tobey Maguire was great as Tobey Maguire. So like that's it. Like he was good as that.
He was good because he was the original.
But I told Ashley, if I were to give them like a rating out of 100, like a test mark, like I'm going to give Tom Holland top 90s. All right, no one's 100.
Okay.
I'm going to give Andrew Garfield mid 90s.
Okay.
And I'm gonna give Tobey high 80s to low 90s. Like he's like, yes, he's in my opinion, the worst Spider-Man, but he's not terrible. He was still a great Spider-Man.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Except when he was emo. But anyways, so seeing the 3 of them just circling around, don't even do that. And it was just
playing off each other. Like there was one point where Tom Holland, I think it was Tom Holland's Spider-Man, shot 2 webs, and the 2 of the other Spider-Man grabbed on it and he swung them over. It was like just a cool moment. So.
And it just that was huge. That was just massively emotional for me because it was just the thing to see as a Spider-Man fan, and I got to see it.
And then you wonder where they're going to go from there.
Well, this is the thing.
Because you can't do that again.
So I want to touch on something that you mentioned before, like Spider-Man messed up.
Yep.
This movie really and truly showed what the comics have been trying to tell. Well, not trying. They have been successfully telling for years. Spider-Man and Peter Parker can coexist, but they both can't be happy. You look at Tony Stark, Tony Stank, and Iron Man. For the most part, they're one and the same. That's it. You look at Captain America, and they just coexist. And it's like, I'm Steve Rogers, I'm Captain America, whatever.
And to touch on that, everyone knows their identity. Why is it that Spider-Man, so far, I do believe, is the only one that hides his identity? He's the first Avenger to hide his identity. Am I correct in saying that?
Well,
I mean, Dr. Strange don't just go around in public. I guess he does. He uses man. Yeah. So why does Spider-Man think he got to be?
Well, it's because he's a kid. He's the youngest of them all. So just the whole part of this and a decision that was made at the end is Spider-Man is now alone.
Yeah.
He had to make a massive sacrifice. Within the span of hours, he lost the literal only family member that he knows of.
Yeah.
He lost Aunt May. That's it. So then, a couple of hours later, he basically fixes everyone, sends them back to their universes, and then in order to prevent the world from being torn asunder, he had to make the deal with Doctor Strange, which, in the comics, is made with Mephisto, for everyone to forget.
Who Peter Parker is.
But see, the thing is, and that's where the dangerous, this is where I kind of, it's not dangerous, that's the wrong word. This is where I kind of was like, why are we forgetting Peter Parker ever existed? Now, this might be part, and again, I might be not looking deep into it enough as to what was happening with the multiverse.
We were emotional when we watched
it. But not even that, the way that I look at it is, why couldn't he have just said, why can't people forget that I'm Spider-Man?
Yeah.
And gone back with what he originally did, but he went just like, no, too many people know about Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
I think he was just done.
And
he was spent.
That was it. So he had to give up MJ, he had to give up Ned, and he had to give up May and the Avengers, knowing that who Peter Parker was. So he is now truly alone.
However, it's going to be a cool moment when he has to rejoin the Avengers, because they're going to be, there's going to be something.
And then this is the thing too, because I don't know if anyone's been following any of the stuff regarding the MCU in the last couple of weeks or even months, but Tom Holland has gone on record. He's been throwing out these weird little comments about, he wants to take a break from acting. And I understand. The dude's been in a lot of stuff over the last year. He was in a movie with Daisy Ridley. He's done Uncharted. He's done Spider-Man. There was another movie that he did.
The Devil something.
The Devil Inside Me or something like that. And so he's been in a lot of relatively high-profile movies. And the dude is 25, 26 or something like that. The dude, he's spent.
Doing a great job, though.
He's doing fantastic. He's a great actor. But he made mention of I'd like to maybe take a break from acting. I'd like to see, because he wants to be a father. He mentioned that in a recent interview, and he said, if I find myself still being Spider-Man when I'm 30, then I'm clearly doing something wrong. So it kind of led to a speculation that he might not want to be Spider-Man anymore. It's been cleared up in a way of speaking, yes, that Sony's basically creative head, Amy Pascal, and Marvel's creative head, Kevin Feige, have gone on record saying that, okay, so there's going to be 3 more movies coming with Tom Holland as our Spider-Man. We think of these as 3 movies that are now ended, and we're going to do another 3. Yeah. If they don't somehow do it with Tom Holland, I will be upset. However, the way this movie ended, it's just we forgot who he is.
Do you think he's going to move on to Gwen Stacy in the next couple movies?
But see, this is the thing. We might be able to see.
It seemed like at the end he was leaving MJ alone. He was at peace almost, that she didn't know.
I don't think he's. I think he's going to try not to force it. I think that's what it was, because he had his whole speech gone up.
But they're going. I think there's going to be another love interest.
And there's plenty. There's Betty Brant. There's Gwen Stacy. They've already done Gwen.
No, say the other one. Your favorite.
Well, Felicia, but
Black Cat.
But this is the thing. But that's what I mean. So we can have more of the rogues gallery
more to
beyond.
look forward to.
Yes.
We got lots to look forward to.
But what I wanted to say too when it comes to Peter, is that his character development is pretty much complete at this point. We've seen him become Spider-Man now. We're kind of reaching the end of where he's done, because he's done everything. He's finished high school. He's fallen in love. He's gone to space. He's fought a god, and now he's lost his family and he's here. This is what Spider-Man is. He learned what it is to have great power, is to have great responsibility. Another thing I want to touch on is Andrew Garfield's redemption.
Oh, yeah. So for anyone obviously, if you watch this, hopefully you've seen the movie. If not, you're just learning with us. Gwen Stacy died in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Unfortunately, Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker attempted to catch her as she fell through the tower, and he was 1 second too late, and she snapped.
She bumped her head, and
she bumped her head, and she was gone. And in this movie, Tom Holland's Michelle Jones, I keep saying Mary Jane, Michelle Jones, fell from the top of the Statue of Liberty, and Tom Holland went to go get her, and he got hit by the Green Goblin's glider, and she looked like she was going to fall to her death until Andrew Garfield dove through the railing, and he caught her and saved her and landed. And the emotion that you could see on Andrew Garfield's face, he played that moment perfectly. He knew that he had redeemed himself, and there was light at the end of the tunnel for him to continue being Spider-Man. You know, it was just, it was just bad luck at that time, and he realized he is a hero. So
2 more things. The multiverse is real.
The multiverse is real, and we won't touch on it much now.
No.
But one of the end credits was actually a trailer.
The sizzle reel, or the trail.
Yeah, a trailer for the Multiverse of Madness, which is the next Doctor Strange movie, which is coming out in May now. It was March, but I think they pushed it.
They did.
We're not going to touch on that. We might not get to do a reaction, but that's all we can do, because we were sat there and we were watching it, ladies and gentlemen.
And because we don't know what's going to happen, because Doctor Strange, we saw the Scarlet Witch. We know King the Conqueror is going to be involved in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Yep.
And I'm just going to look through my other notes here, and we also know that the multiverse has been tampered with, along with WandaVision and Loki. So where is this going to go? We have no idea. So the last thing.
Yep.
Is this the best superhero movie that you have ever seen?
It is not. That's my dead take.
Then I agree.
For me, I would like to say that this movie fell somewhere around the Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's because they are like number 2 and 3 up on my list, or 3 and 4. For me, I think Infinity War and Endgame, honestly, together, for me, is really good movie. I also love the
12-hour movie.
I also love the original Avengers, like I said before. Soft spot in my heart. So if I had to pick a top 5, this one would probably be tied for me for 5 or 4. That's where I would
for me, the best superhero movies that are out there.
I thought we were talking MCU. I think I know where you're going.
Oh
with this,
yeah.
but go ahead.
Is going to be Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Winter Soldier is right up there with The Dark Knight.
Yeah. I knew you were going to
However,
say that.
this is where it's going to get a little weird with what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And I've written this down because I had to figure out what I was going to do. So. I feel that Winter Soldier and The Dark Knight are the best superhero movies that are out there. However, No Way Home is my favorite MCU movie. Now, how does that make sense if Winter Soldier is the better movie?
Okay.
Is because, and again, like I said, I got to read this down.
I'm learning what you.
Winter Soldier and Dark Knight are gritty movies. They are hard hitting. There's like a bit of humor, and but they're gritty. They're realistic. No Way Home is a true comic book movie. It spans the weird and wonderful world of comics so well that it is a comic book movie. The closest movies to it as comic book movies in the MCU are Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok, just because they're wild, woolly, and wonderful.
Yeah.
And you're crossing multiverses. This is happening. Why did this happen? I don't know. Just accept it. Here we go. Look, there's a Spider-Man. There's a Spider-Man. Is there going to be a black Spider-Man? I don't know.
There's a Spider-Man. You get a Spider-Man. You get a Spider-Man.
But it did it well, and it wasn't like we didn't.
And they might even there was a little alluding to Miles Morales, so they might even give us some more Spider-Man down the road.
So unfortunately, we do have to wrap this up because you are running out of battery.
We are.
So
and like we always say, we're keeping it real. My battery is dying as we speak.
So my rating for this movie is 11 out of 10, but I have to knock it down to a 10 out of 10 because they didn't have a cup for me at the
That is true. He got stiffed on the cup.
So thanks, Cineplex, for that.
I will leave everybody with the one last thing here before we take off. A piece of the Venom symbiote was left behind after the multiverse was repaired and Eddie Brock went. So that could be the next storytelling. We could be seeing a new Venom. So that would be exciting. But nonetheless, guys, once again, we do thank you for joining us on the channel today for our Spider-Man review. We hope we give you some insight. And if you haven't seen it, but you watch a review, I hope this makes you want to go out and see it in the theater because it is so worth the money and the IMAX ticket.
And I want to make sure that you stay tuned to the channel because we're going to have the season finale for Hawkeye coming up next week. We're going to try and figure out what we're going to do for that. We've got Matrix Resurrections coming up, and we're not sure how we're going to do that because there's a bit of travel possibly going on with that. But we're going to see what we're going to do with that. And before the new year on Disney Plus.
Oh, there's something else?
Yeah. Oh. You're not interested in it, but I am.
Okay.
The Book of Boba Fett is coming out. So this is going to be our interim. This is going to be the interim between season 2 and season 3 of The Mandalorian.
Basically what we're saying is, guys, there's a lot to be had on this channel, a lot more we're going to get into. We're just getting started. We're a month in. We're ready to go. We're hitting the ground running next year and giving you guys all the content. I'm the real Jussie.
I'm Peter Parkour. And as we always say,
keep it real.